Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to get started here in just a minute. Hopefully we'll give everyone a chance to get settled. Today we're going to be chatting with Kimberly Blue, a first-year student in the program, but I will let Kimberly introduce herself in just a moment. So thanks for joining us. We are the Seattle University School of Law, Master of Legal Studies in Compliance and Risk Management. And today we're going to be chatting super casual conversation, just a day in the life of an online MLS student. So I will post my information again later, so don't feel like you have to scramble to write it down. But I'm Kelly Rodriguez Curry, and I am the Director of Graduate Studies here at Seattle University School of Law. I also teach in the program. I teach on campus in the university, and I have been on campus for several years. I'm actually a graduate of the university. I graduated in 2014 with my Juris Doctor, so my law degree, and a master's of sport and, well, no, not sport and entertainment management, sport administration and leadership. The program has changed a couple of times since I graduated. And I almost literally have not left campus since. So I love it here at Seattle U, and I'm super excited to be back in the law school. Kimberly, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, that would be great.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Kimberly Blue, and I am the Senior Director for Compliance and Accountability at a community college located in South Central North Carolina. The college is called Sandhills Community College. We're called Sandhills because we are literally in an area where there's lots of sand. We're not on the coast, but we're close to the coast. There's lots of sand and longleaf pines. So anyway, so we have Sandhills. Sandhills is one of 58 community colleges in North Carolina. And just so you'll know, North Carolina has one of the largest community college systems that, and we answer to the North Carolina Community College System, which is an administrative agency of the state. We're fairly big, but what's really interesting when you work in compliance is the fact that each college is very unique. Even though we have a lot of similar processes, we are very different in a lot of ways, which makes it very interesting when you're gathering with your peers across the state. But I've been in this role now. I actually started out as an internal auditor in the division I'm in. I am not in the degree side of the college. I am in short-term workforce development. We are very fluid and fast when it comes to responding to our workforce partners and employers in our area. We serve 2 counties in North Carolina, and they're very different. They have very different demographics. One's very rural, and even though the county our main campus is located in is rural, only to a certain extent. So they're very two different demographics. And we are, and for me, my job has grown a lot. I started out as an internal auditor 12 years ago in my division. Before that, I was in planning and research. And then when I moved over into short-term workforce training, when I was an internal auditor, I was really pretty much looking at numbers. I was number crunching. I was always looking at the output. The more my job grew into compliance and accountability, I was being brought in, as I should be, into the front end of the conversation. So you can't have compliance if you don't have accountability. So I've been working really hard over the last 5 years in my position. As my job grew, I've been working very hard to be on that front end of the conversation when it comes to doing something different. Because in our area, we can pretty much say yes when our curriculum, college degree, peers across on the other side of the college, they it's very cut and dry for them. We build classes, we run classes every day, we stop them every day. We don't run classes necessarily for a whole semester, although we do. And another thing that has changed a lot in North Carolina especially, and I think across the nation, is the fact that in my area, it used to be about updating the current workforce, their skills, and we do that, absolutely.
Mhm.
But we're doing a lot of front end training and a lot of entry level training and those that are wanting to make career changes. We're also serving high school students in the high school.
Right,
So that's another level of
right.
compliance. And I always say that compliance touches everything. So I'm just in a position where I have to be fully aware of what's going on and be in those conversations when it comes to planning and changes. And we have regulations, state regulations from our general legislature that we have to follow. We are the North Carolina Community College system does not sit under the public Department of Public Instruction. It is an administrative agency of the executive leadership, which is the governor in North Carolina. So we do not follow under Department of Public Instruction. We are an administrative agency, and then as a college, we work under the direction of the system office.
I think we lost you for a little bit, but I
Okay.
think, or at least maybe it was me.
Yeah.
My computer is telling me that it could be me. So I apologize for the technical stuff, but I think that we kind of got the meat of it. It's interesting that the community college system is separate from the public instruction, especially I know that in the state of Washington, so I'm in Seattle, obviously, and in the state of Washington, because specifically of the high school overlap, there's a lot of stuff that falls under the public instruction. So interesting.
And our executive leader is the board. It's a board.
Which is very unique. I mean, that's more like a university would be.
Yeah, it's the State Board of Community Colleges in North Carolina, and that board sits between the general legislature and the system and the colleges that make up that system. So,
oh, wow. So when did you said you started out in the auditing side? Mm-hmm. When did you move into kind of the compliance side, and what did that trajectory look like for you?
It was about really about 4 years into my job as an internal auditor. We had some leadership change, mm-hmm. and thankfully the leader that came to us valued compliance greatly. Because, if you're not compliant, everything you do is not going to make a difference. Right. So she valued compliance, and she started bringing me into the conversation. And instead of me being the internal auditor, someone that you really are on your own, you don't have many friends. Yeah. Things started to change. I started building relationships with people, and leadership is very important. You have to have a leader that appreciates compliance, and I just started, I started being involved. They started including me in planning activities, mm-hmm. and there were things going on in compliance that examples of issues that we were having. And, we wouldn't have had this issue if I had kind of known about something. And
sure.
So again, we're very creative and flexible with what we can offer and provide and when we can do that. And so you really have to have your internal controls in place. And so I've been in this position now since 2016, and it still is evolving. It is evolving every day.
Right.
And, I'm bringing, and I'm also, I actually have been working with our system office. They pulled me in to do some training.
That's awesome.
Help with initiatives and new things that we're trying to do. So
I think there's 2 points that I kind of want to, for the benefit of our guests and listeners, call out that I don't think we call out very often certainly not in these talks, and definitely not in the outside the compliance space. But I think previously, you're right that lots of organizations approached these conversations from an auditing perspective. And when we talk about auditing, most of the time, that's definitely from a reactive perspective, right? A team, whether internal or external, is going into an organization and evaluating, are they doing things right? Are they compliant? But really, they're looking at did they dot all the I's and cross all of the T's? I often get that mixed up, which is why I hesitated. Are you going to receive federal funds or have state funds taken away? Did you do all of the things you're supposed to be doing to make sure that you're following the rules? And we historically, organizations only had to deal with that on the reactive side. And it has only been really in the last, I mean, I've been in industry for 20 years, and it's really only been in the last 10 that we've kind of shifted this focus to, well, if we look at things on the compliance side and on the risk management side, and we build these processes and systems and put them in place on the front end, and we train people how to do this on the front end, then we need far less auditing or concern on the back end. So it's been a really interesting shift, and out of it, of course, has come this entire industry of literally compliance, right? And we have certainly tracks like, which leads me to my second point, there's like the healthcare and the data and all these tracks that we offer here at Seattle U. But as someone who's in education, right, compliance is the profession. It's not, I mean, certainly you can specialize in something, but the things that you're learning are applicable regardless.
Absolutely. Compliance is a function, or should be a function, of your business. And I'll take it back just a little bit.
Sure.
Accountability. You must install accountability measures throughout your operations so that you reach compliance.
Right.
The goal
Right.
is
Good
to
point.
reach compliance. And you can't get there unless unless people or personnel, divisions, departments are held accountable. I have to be held accountable. I need a check and balance for what I do. And I just came out of an audit where the state actually we have compliance examiners at the system office, and they are community college system employees, but they come and they watch what I do, and they look it through my records and all of that. And so, I answer to them as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But you have to have internal control and accountability measures. If you don't have that, then you're going to have compliance issues for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm sure we'll pick up many of these threads throughout. I have some preloaded questions, and then certainly feel free to offer your own tidbits along the way. And any listeners out there can feel free to add their own. Yeah, so you can send them via chat, or feel free to, if you raise your hand, I can unmute you from my end. Or you can send me a direct message. I have not had any come in over email this morning. I sent out an email request, so we'll see what comes in. So one of the questions we get a lot from prospective students is, how on earth do you juggle classes? Because we have a lot of non-traditional students. I myself, when I went back to graduate school, was a non-traditional student. So how do you juggle your classes? And some of the sub questions there are like, what's the time commitment look like for you? Live classes versus asynchronous, reading requirements, those sorts of things. What does that look like for you?
The first semester, so I'm into my second semester, but the first semester, there's a lot of groundwork to cover, because this is a formal program, and I was looking for the formal education in legal studies. And I will say that there's a lot of time that you have to invest, especially your first term, because you're learning foundational and fundamental concepts of the law. And I would say I've been investing about 30 hours a week. And you can break that up. I recommend you breaking that up as much as you can and working that into your life. It's not something you can just do at home at night. You just have to blend it in with your life. And that's the best way to do it. Take everything in small components to make it manageable. But I would say 30, sometimes 35 hours.
Yeah, I definitely would echo that. I mean, the hour commitment is going to look different for everyone. It depends on kind of, it depends on a myriad of things, right? Where your background is from, how quickly you read. I'm a very slow reader, which for law school was just a killer. But it's really difficult for me to sit down and read. And so I think that some of those things come into play. I'll say that one of the things that we aim to do is to target about 9 hours-ish per week per course. And each student is taking approximately 2 courses per term. So that's about 15 to 20 hours base. And then it's going to vary widely from there. For some students, it is going to be 30, 35 hours. I will say that it does get easier for sure. Those first 2 semesters are much, much more challenging. And some of that is because we have so many non-traditional students, really just kind of getting back into like remembering what it's like to go to school. It's a muscle like anything else, and you have to relearn it sometimes.
And I'm a visual learner, so I like to map out things and map out concepts and theory. So I do like to take a lot of notes. I'm still a paper queen. and I will say it's not 30 to 35 hours every week or anything. It's not 6 hours a day if you're looking at how many days there are in a week. But you need to, it's a lot of reading and learning theory and concepts and the law. And I that takes time, and you got to take time with it. But it's much easier this semester, I will have to say. Having you just need that foundation. You got to invest that time in the beginning, because you have to learn so much, but you'll get it. And I try to apply it to what interests me.
Yeah, I agree too. The law is a totally different language, and that's much of the learning curve it's steep because it's so different. Let's see. When do you find time to study? Like, do you sleep?
Well, there's been a few, I wouldn't say all-nighters or anything like that, but a few late nights. What I learned not to, when I started this program, I was scheduling large blocks of time and making myself like stay in my office at home. But I found that you need to break it up as much as you can and do it in smaller components. But I would say, the first semester, you really do need to invest that time and plan. I would say 3 weekdays. There's some things that you really need to spend more time on. So there were maybe a couple of nights a week where I'd get home from work and I would kind of have some time to myself, make sure you have a break. And then I would just kind of close myself up and, kind of be dedicated for about 3 hours. And I always try to make my study environment as much fun as I can. That's always helpful. And I would say 3 nights a week, you really need to dedicate some considerable time. And I would say 3 hours. Then I had a fun night where I might do a little reading, or I might, do an hour and then, watch my favorite show or do something like that. And then try to do as much as you can on the weekends. And I just plan my weekends out. I would get up, morning was a good time for me, and sometime in the afternoons. But I just have a planner, and if I just scheduled it out in the planner, and sometimes it wouldn't work out. Sometimes I'd have to change it up. It was very helpful, especially the first semester, putting together a plan and kind of sticking to it. You really need to do that your first semester, I would say.
Yeah, no, I agree. And being flexible too is helpful, right? Trying to figure out what does work and what doesn't work. I know when I was in law school, so I started law school when I was 33, and my children were 6 and 3 at the time, I think. And it was a challenge for sure. I probably had 300 pages of reading a week, and it was insane. And I would, the sort of pattern I personally was able to find was that I would do all of my reading on the weekends. My kid's father was very supportive, and he was home. I was home with them during the week and doing some part-time work. He worked during the week, but then on the weekends, I would get up super early. Like, I'm kind of an early bird. I'd get up at about 6 a.m. and I would go find a coffee shop or a library or something. And I would do all of my reading and get it all done on the weekends. And then during the week, I would do some of those more like those smaller assignments where I could like do an hour here, 15 minutes there, and just kind of capture time wherever I found it. And then review before the class or before whatever. And it was really helpful to just kind of block my time that way. And certainly it was, there were times when he was not available when he had to travel for work. And, you know, it was, you remind yourself that, you know, kids are pretty resilient, and, you know, being a rock star mom or a rock star parent is actually a pretty low bar, right? Like, it's okay. It turns out it's kind of fun when you just build a fort in the middle of the living room and everybody's having a party and mom's got her books out, right? Like, they think it's great. So took advantage of some of those moments too. And feeling like you didn't always have to be everything to everybody.
Right. That was a good way to put it. You have to capture those times and be a little creative.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Okay. Sometimes
Yeah,
I carry around reading material if I'm in the car waiting in line
I
for something.
always do.
Yeah, just keep something in the car that you can glance at, and you know, and keep a little notebook with you at all times, or a tablet.
Yeah, I mean, and actually, in our program, we have lots of discussions, online discussion forums, and I will, when I was in my program, we had fewer of those, but there were some times we had to be prepared for a more structured discussion, and I would print those things out so that I could make an outline, like jot down notes throughout the day, so that when I did either get back to the computer, in this case, I could just type out the discussion really quickly. Or in my case, I would get back to like the lecture and have a more structured discussion, but I had all my bullet points ready. So just taking those moments to like capture little bits and organize your thoughts so that when you actually have time to do it, it's just getting it down on paper.
And one thing I like doing is when there's a video lecture, you can actually just listen to it on your way home. And certainly some of them have visuals that you need to look in on. But when you go back to that video, like if you just listen to it and then you watch it, it's a lot easier to follow. And that was helpful. That was helpful. And you've gotten the content twice, which is nice.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Those are really helpful tips. Thank you. I think some of the other stuff that, like, you know, people forget about sometimes is there's a lot of people in your village, and, you know, we all have a village, even if we don't think that we do. It's hard for me to ask for help for sometimes, but, you know, there are a lot of people that are really rooting for you. And when they ask how they can support you, it's okay to take them up on that. It's okay to say, hey, like, do you mind watching my kiddo for an hour? Or, you know, gosh, I really like can't even figure out dinner. One of my friends, oh my goodness, the only thing I needed for her to do was to, like, I was like, can you go find me some recipes that you like on, like, online? I just need, like, I couldn't make decisions. I couldn't decide what to make. I was perfectly willing to like go shopping and execute on it. I just didn't have the time to go find good things. And she would send them to me. It was great. It was fantastic. So, let's see. I'm curious, especially for someone who is not in an industry that is like typical of the tracks that we offer. How do you feel the courses are like supportive of your professional development?
I think they're very supportive. Already I'm getting some great ideas and suggestions on how better I can, like the risk management part of it. We have, like I've said, we're very fast and fluid with the way we build classes and execute those classes, administer those classes. And what I'm learning in these courses has been very helpful. If you go back to just the foundational information that I'm learning now, I mean, I've been looking at our administrative code for years. Well, I look at it in a whole different light now. I feel much more informed and able to locate information. It's very important, you know, how to navigate the code, administrative code or statutes or whatever. And that has been very, very helpful. There's a lot of things that I've learned that's been very helpful. How to navigate resources online, what's reliable and what's not reliable has been very, very helpful. I didn't know anything about Google Scholar, and I've been learning about that, and how to cite references. Citation is very important, and it's still a work in progress for me. But one thing I really appreciated about this, it's how to organize and be more concise with your language. I have an English background. I have creative writing, and all of my supervisors just about have been English, they had creative writing degrees and great writers, absolutely. But I'm learning how to write more concisely, and that's so important. It's not the types of wording you use or how, you have to be concise and straight to the point, and how to organize your message. That's what I'm learning in here, which I really appreciate. I was able to start on that right away because I have to write many compliance notes all the time. Doesn't matter if I'm being audited or not. I have to write compliance memos and memorandums. And now I've learned how to write legal memorandums and how to cite the sources, which is very important, because if you don't cite your sources, you don't have that credibility.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm very appreciative of that. The writing and research class is a great class. It really, it was like a workout for me. And I thought at first, hey, I got this, I can write. I'm one of the best writers in our department. I'll do a great job. And it was hard. It was very challenging, but it was in such a good way though. I learned so much, and it's all about, getting to the point. What are the facts? What's the issue? Putting everything else aside. And
yes, yeah,
that can be such a productive process.
Yeah, I think that what people don't realize, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but this is very much, you're in a law school, and this is very much a legal degree, right? It's not a law degree specifically like in the traditional sense, but the writing course that you all take, that our MLS students take, is very, very similar to the first writing course that our law students take. And man, having been through our legal writing program, it's been in the top 10 for more than a decade. It is challenging. And I cried many tears over many memos when I was in law school. It's hard, and it has made me such a better writer. I have trouble using adjectives now, right? I think they took all the adjectives from my vernacular, but it's
and the feedback you get is wonderful. I mean, the teachers, the instructors, the professors the feedback is so valuable. And I've been using everything that I've learned, and especially in that class, in real time. I was using it on the job. I started changing the way I was, conducting my business. And so
that is great. Well, and just the citations, even being able to decipher the citations. I mean, you must get documents in front of you where you're seeing a citation and not knowing what it means, and now being able to decipher it, because those citations are just a totally different language.
Yes.
Yeah. So there are some certificate programs, and we do get questions about from prospective students around, is the certificate better than an MLS? It's a little bit faster. And you mentioned wanting a more formal program when you were applying, and I'm curious, could you tell us a little bit about more why you were interested in a more formal program?
Well, this is because it's at a master's level, and in education and in any profession, when you have a master's degree, I was looking for a discipline, and this content is too important. I mean, I've been in this job for quite some time now, and I needed an education. I didn't want, I wanted a master's level program, and I knew I would have to put at least 2 years into it. And I'm so glad that this program you can complete in 2 years. That's why, I mean, you're spending more time. You're definitely spending more time. I know a lot of folks who've gotten 3-year, it's taken them 3 years to get a 2-year degree, but you're finishing this in 2 years while you're working. This is a part-time program, and I felt like it would just be in my best interest to go ahead and have the full program versus the certificate. And I can understand the value of a certificate. But.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't actually know too much about the certificate programs out there. I think that you're right that, especially in a market where the industry is it's becoming an industry of its own, right? Compliance is very much a profession of its own now. Having that sort of degree to separate yourself
Yes,
as a compliance professional, um, rather than just someone who has worked in compliance is a important distinguishing factor.
absolutely. And if you look at the jobs that are out there and the descriptions and the types of jobs, a master's is preferred or required.
Right.
I'm also a Title IX, and I'm part of the Title IX investigation team at our college. We do
Mhm.
not have dorms, but we still have cases. And I've been involved in several cases that I've investigated. And that was another reason I wanted to do this program,
Mhm.
because I'm very much working with the laws. And there were times during an investigation where I felt like I would say, we're not attorneys. What are we doing? But I've learned so much, and I
Mhm.
go through training for that as well. And one of the options I would have after this degree program would be being a Title IX coordinator at a larger
Oh,
school.
wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Title
Where a
IX
master's,
coordinators,
yeah,
yeah,
masters would definitely be required there.
yeah,
Yeah.
they require, and many schools require law degrees.
Mhm. For sure. For
And so
sure.
if you look out there, but that was an option for me.
Yeah.
This having a 2 year will open up many doors for me,
Mhm.
and I am in my early 50s, but I had worked well, I'm about 65, and then part-time after that. And I see this education and the experience I'm getting, I'll be able to do that. I can, maybe be a legal researcher later.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm
Absolutely. And
doing
there's a
that
lot of
already,
freelance work there.
but yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it's funny. I would be remiss if I did not note that today is exactly the 50-year anniversary of Title IX. It was enacted in 1972 as a part of the education amendments. My academic research is in sport law, but Title IX and
Yes,
student athlete experience specifically. So it's a big day for me.
athletics,
Yes.
yeah. Mhm.
Oh, yes. But it's interesting. I mean, it's like, kind of tangentially, but Title IX never was intended to be a part of athletics and then kind of morphed into that. And then, of course, we've seen it in the last 10, 15 years kind of take this other detour into sexual harassment and campus experience. And I mean, all of that is because of the way laws are written, laws are interpreted, and the guidance from regulatory authorities like the Department of Education and their interpretation and guidance to universities and schools on the implementation, which is absolutely regulatory, flows through compliance offices, right? Like all of this stuff is so specific to compliance and regulation. So I know I could like go on and on about compliance. um,
Much
let's
value in this program.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm happy to speak to this if you're not up for it, but we do get a lot of questions too about like how is an MLS different than a JD? Lots of students are kind of like weighing, do I want to go to law school? Do I want to go to an MLS? This is 2 years, that's only a third year, what should I do? Would love your thoughts if you want to contribute, and then I'm happy to add on.
Well, I know that I would, in knowing I know people who are attorneys, and this program for me lays the groundwork before you get to the attorney level. Many, if you look at the jobs that are out there, there are a lot of legal researcher jobs, and I know that there are firms that hire legal researchers and paralegals and other professionals to do this type of work. So I see this as, this degree would prepare you to lay the groundwork for an attorney in a particular type of law. And that's very interesting. My mother was a paralegal for 20 some years, and I know many attorneys, and this program absolutely would be very valuable in a law office. I mean, or someone that had this credential, this background in MLS,
Mhm.
because this person would be very engaged in the process of prepping for cases
Mhm.
and other legal types of business, and that's where I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's funny because on the one hand, it is very much, there's so much overlap between the MLS and the JD, right? That first year sort of intro to law research. And then it deviates a lot also. And it's a very different degree in some ways. Because in the electives part of it, the MLS goes way more into the administrative functions of law rather than kind of like the litigative, or that's not even a word, litigating areas, or like trial law, or the like executive functions around legislature.
Right.
And so in that way, it's so different, right? Compliance is a very, very different function than lawyer, than like litigating. And
Right.
previously, 10 years ago, before compliance was kind of a profession, anybody that worked in compliance or auditing or in like senior levels absolutely had a JD for the most part. And they had that role because they had a JD and they could see how the law applied to business or an industry in some way. And now we're kind of coming at it from the other side, where we've got all of these folks who have so much experience and knowledge about business. It's like, well, how do we give them the legal background so that they can bring that legal lens, but they don't ever want to practice law, right? They don't need to sit for a bar exam. They don't want to represent clients. They just want to be able to bring that legal lens to a business or organization within a certain industry. And so in one case, you're right, like the education is so similar, but the goals are so very different. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, it's a weird thing to try and explain to folks sometimes, but we do have lots of students who really aren't sure where they want to end up. And I think that I would ask, I challenge prospective students to really consider, like, do you want to practice law, as in litigate, trial, represent clients, those sorts of things, or do you want to do compliance, process, procedure, risk management within an organization? Two completely different job functions.
Absolutely. That's a very clear distinction. And there, even though there's definitely overlapping.
Mhm.
And for me, I'm on the business administration side, and this program is helping me be able to, look at things through a legal lens,
Mhm.
as I'm supposed to, because compliance touches everything. And I'm in a very process driven world and regulatory. And absolutely, if you're this is mainly about administrative law, which is very important. And it's what I'm doing now in my job as I work with administrative code. And so it's been very, very helpful.
Awesome. Yeah. And I guess, this is kind of a precursor to like, oh my gosh, this is, there's money involved here, right? Like tuition is expensive. Everything's expensive right now. I just filled up my car this morning. And so I guess like, prior to that, like, is there value here, right? Like, do you see it in, I guess, where you are in your career? Do you anticipate that you'll see that value returned to you monetarily, really, in the way of like either promotions or a longer career? How do you hope to see that value returned to you?
I look at first as an investment. I have really, this is a discipline for me, the job I'm in. I have enough work experience and knowledge, from my training. And then with this education, it's an investment for me.
Mhm.
And it's going to open up options for me as well. Because like I said, I'm going to be working full time for many, many years now. I mean, and even though, I am in my early 50s, but I like to work. I'm not slowing down anytime soon. And even at this point in my life, and I'm thinking this is the last third of my working life,
Oh my goodness, no.
it's going to bring value. And
Yeah,
and at some point, if I ever choose to work part-time, there'll be options for me.
for sure.
It's an investment. It's an investment. And thankfully I am getting some help with my employer, not 100%.
Mhm.
I did get a nice scholarship through Seattle University, which was nice, but it's definitely going to pay back out, and I've got a support network here at my work, and so I can use a lot of resources here at work.
That's
And
great.
but it's an investment, and it's
Yeah.
going to add great value to what I'm doing.
That's awesome. Yeah, we do offer scholarships. We have quite a few students that earn scholarships based on their we call them merit scholarships, but we don't look at merit just as like GPA or test scores or anything like that, right? Merit is a very wide. We've got students who their merit is like very much their professional experience. And that's super, super valuable in our classrooms. Our discussions are very much enriched by the professional experience that our students bring. So they're absolutely rewarded for that. And you bring up employer benefits. There are some websites out there too. I'll have to do some research and make a point to post those on our website. But there are some really great employers that offer educational benefits and tuition remission. So I would encourage folks to check those out. And it kind of brings us to our next slide. Is it really affordable? I mean, like Kimberly said, there's so many options. We've got merit scholarships. Our financial aid services team is just phenomenal. I was just chatting with them this morning, and they are so patient. They are way more patient than I am. They are on the phone all day helping students. They'll help you figure out a budget. They work with both our MLS students and our JD students and our LLM students, and they're so knowledgeable about what kind of loans are out there, what the payment restructure looks like. As a graduate of the school, like I have loans that I'm still repaying that they've helped me through. I mean, they really are they're here for the long haul. They have alums who they still support and help work those out too. So there's a lot.
Yeah, overall, I'm sorry. Overall, I think it's reasonable for what you're getting. And also the fact that, yeah, I'm getting financial aid as well, but really it's like buying a nice used car, to be honest with you. That's what I'm telling
yeah.
family. They're like, you're going to law school? I'm like, it's like buying a nice used car, and I'm getting some help along the way. And there's value, there's great value in it.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you say that. And actually, like, I think sometimes, it could be a full-time program, right? Like you could theoretically, from a structure standpoint, it would be challenging, but a lot of MLS programs you finish in a year, and credit wise you could do this in a year, but there is value actually to stretching it out over 2 years, right? Because so many of our students are non-traditional. It allows them to continue working. Many of our students are not having to finance or take out loans for their living expenses because they're not having to quit their work, and so they're just financing a bit of their tuition,
right?
And it spreads that out over a couple of years, so that's helpful.
Yes.
And then I just wanted to put some like details for folks. I feel bad even like highlighting the focus areas. I feel like I should be like, no, compliance is a profession, because you're not in any of those focus areas. I mean, I'm sure that you are kind of, and it's actually worth even pointing out that like, there is not you don't have to specialize in any. All of the electives are open to everyone. And people just kind of like take whichever they like. So all of our classes are fully online, and we didn't even really talk about the split. Every class is 14 weeks long, and about maybe 4 or 5 of those per class are live, but they are all recorded and you can watch them later if you can't make it live.
Very helpful. And actually in my area, I touch up on all these areas. I'm sure. Areas. Yeah, I'm sorry. In my job, I touch up on all of these areas. We actually have 10 allied health programs.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, we do. We have 10. One of them is certified medical assisting. We just received our accreditation to offer that. And there are a lot of regulations among, our credentialing agencies and what the state, allows us to do. I'm looking at numbers all the time, so financial compliance is very helpful. I'm also we got a new information system for our students, and we're going to be pretty much handling that ourselves in our area. It's really a system that's driven by the end users and administered by the end users. And so I've kind of been put in charge of that. So learning about cybersecurity compliance is very important to me. And like I said, we operate much like a business. So I think of us as, corporate compliance.
Yeah, I was just chatting with one of our other professors and saying like data and cybersecurity, that touches every organization now, every single one. So I think that that's super applicable. And we've talked about this a bunch. It's a total of 30 credits. It's 24 months, and it's exactly, we go through the summers. But we also have plenty of students who take a term off and pick it up. Like, it's super flexible in that way.
Goes by really fast.
It does. It really does. Our upcoming dates for those of you, our application deadline is July 31st, and we've got our summer term, no, our fall term, my goodness, starting September 6th. And then my information again for anyone who's interested in reaching out and has questions. But yeah, we are actually, it looks like we're just recording it, just the two of us now. So do you have anything else you want to add, Kimberly? We didn't have any other questions come in.
Yeah, I'm just very glad to be in the program, and I'm learning a lot. I mean, I'm getting what I wanted, and that's to be a better legal analyst and writer, and have an understanding of how to communicate regulations and regulatory matters in a better way, in a better sense, and to be able to go to the table if I get a lot of Title IX training, and attorneys are working with us. They're training us, and I'll be able to keep up. We'll be able to, at my next training, which is this fall, I'm going to be able to keep up better.
That's going to be exciting for you.
Yeah,
that's going to be so fun.
Yeah, it will. They talk right much about case law, and so I'll be able to I'll understand what they're saying.
That's so fun. Well, we've got a couple of Title IX cases, I think, in front of some of the circuit courts right now. So
yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. It was lovely chatting with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it so
Yeah.
much. And if anybody ever has any questions, anybody can reach out to me as well.
Oh,
I'm in
thank
that
you.
network group, the MLS network group. So
awesome.
I'll
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Thank you
so much. Have a great day, Kimberly.
All right. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.